welcome to the podcast. This is What the FAQ, or WTFAQ, as its official name. I'm Patricia.
I'm Ashley.
Stephanie.
So heads up, Stephanie's about a bottle deep right now of
A bottle deep plus 2 tequila, whatever it was at dim sum.
yeah
Power move.
power move. So that she's drinking some rosé right now. So some really
I won't
expensive
say it.
Charles Shaw. Charles. But anyway,
Charles Shaw?
Did
Did you mean Charles Schwab? Are we talking about my 401k?
No, we're talking about the cheap wine you get at Trader Joe's.
Oh, is that why I'm barely buzzed off of it?
Probably. It's not that. I filled it with water and it's dyed pink.
Damn it. Again?
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. This is our very first episode, so if you're along for the ride, thank you, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we are enjoying. I was going to say filming, but recording. We have faces for radio, right?
Exactly.
Always been told. Face for radio.
Yeah. So
Body for porn.
And we're there. We're there. We're there.
All right, awesome. So anyway, the basis of this podcast is just asking questions and coming up with our own answers for them, really, and talking about stupid questions.
Not all of them are stupid.
Some of them are really good.
Some of them are
Most of them are good.
unintentionally super deep or can
Yeah.
get super deep,
So we started...
depending on how much wine is in your system.
Or not.
So Stephanie's are all really deep. She
Super
likes
deep.
it deep.
Or do you like it
Perception,
deep?
reality. Reality, perception.
We started making a list of questions for this podcast, 5 months ago?
Yes.
I think our first question ever was, why is Seal's face the way it is?
No one knows.
So that might be a question for a future
Except
episode.
that there's
Everyone
an actual
knows.
answer to it, which is why it's not a debatable question.
Let it happen, Steph.
Let it happen.
Oh. Only if it deserves to happen.
So each week we will come out with a new show. If everything works as it's supposed to, we will come out with a new show. And in each episode, we will each come with our own awesome question, and then we'll discuss them. So what we're hoping for in the future is if we get enough people listening and get enough people engaged with the show, that you can send in questions, and we'll have maybe a monthly listener episode where we can answer your questions, as long as they are not too dirty.
Or stupid,
Or
apparently.
exceptionally dirty.
But Stephanie upvotes anything dirty, so up to you guys. Anyway, so I think that's a good intro for us, and what we're going to do now is just going to jump into the questions, and today's first question asker is
Ashley.
Ashley.
So I was walking down the street the other day and I saw this very disgusting wet shoe. And I was like, man, that is so disgusting.
How do you decipher that it was wet?
I
Was there a
mean-
very obvious ring of wetness around it, or did you just
looked
assume?
sopped and there was a wet ring around it. One could assume it was wet.
The wet ring really
There was
would
also
have
the
done
cartoon smelly signs coming out of it.
oh god.
Oh, the stink
The
waves.
stink waves. Yeah, you always know the kid who has that and apparently the shoe.
It's weird when
So-
it comes into reality.
I mean, that is true. So then I thought to myself, I was like, man, that's such a disgusting shoe. Who would want to steal that shoe? Then I thought about, what would I rather do? Would I put my foot into that shoe without a sock on, or would I rather put my hand in a hole with
Had
no
you-
glove on?
Had you seen a hole earlier that day that you were contemplating
No.
sticking your hand
I
into?
just think about holes all the time, apparently. Let it go, Steph. Let it go.
Okay. We'll ask about the holes later.
There are only so many.
only so many
off air. So your question is, would you rather put your
Foot into a miscellaneous random street shoe that's wet with no sock, or put your hand in a hole without a glove on?
All right, Stephanie, what do you think?
I'm gonna put my foot in that shoe, and let me tell you why.
That's disgusting.
It is super disgusting, but I feel like there's a lot of things that I could get from said shoe could be cleared by creams. I'm just assuming. Where if I put my hand into a random hole, you're giving me no other distinguished anythings about said hole. It's just a hole. I'm immediately going to my darkest fears, which are spiders, bugs, things that will bite me and kill me.
But how
Not
do you
to
know
say
it's not in a shoe?
That is fair. But
Or
I feel
like-
like there's a little bit more of what you can see in this shoe. I'm also assuming it's daylight and that I have a little bit more visibility into the shoe.
You have
than
a
I
lot of
do-
assumptions here.
I do. Than I do into said random hole where I need my hand to function a lot. Not to say I don't need my shoe, but I'm assuming the worst I'm going to get is maybe some sort of fungus or an athlete's foot.
Or flesh-eating bacteria.
Would I
Oh.
not get that on my hand from this random hole?
I mean, it could just be a catfish. You could be noodling at that point.
You could also get the flesh-eating bacteria from the buses here in this city.
True.
I feel like I have some
Disgusting.
sort of immunity from flesh-eating bacteria, is where
Does
my
anyone?
foot is so overly calloused as it is that it could probably handle more than my
So,
hand could.
What I'm envisioning is your foot is just one callus.
My
not
foot is
even a
just
foot.
a callus. It's not even a foot anymore. It has just all been fused together by one giant callus and can handle whatever that shoe has to bring.
So
so
really, the shoe would feed your callus. Your callus becomes the predator.
My callus is that flesh-eating bacteria you were discussing before, where my hand would not handle that.
Okay,
but my
so
foot could do it.
I'm going to one-up this question with another bit. You had to keep your foot or your hand in the shoe
Yes.
or the hole, excuse me, for 5 minutes.
Same answer.
Okay.
If you were basically saying foot in the shoe for 5 minutes or hand in the hole for a minute, that's a very different assumption. But I feel like if I were to put my foot in the shoe, I'm assuming, I have a lot of assumptions here, that it's just a gross thrown out shoe, as opposed to I don't know any specifics about this hole. So my mind is going to really deep, dark places of what this hole could be.
My mind doesn't go deep and dark; it goes dirty when we're talking about holes.
Dying.
Oh.
Please explain.
So let me just tell you though, I would rather put my hand or my foot in the shoe as well.
Oh.
I think because I do value my hands over my feet in terms of what is on them or what they're touching. Because I will often touch my face or put my fingers in my mouth because I'm just like
Nobody wants pink eye.
You don't put your feet in your mouth?
I mean, not anymore.
Foot in my mouth.
It's just a thing. Get used to it.
But I think I can find a way to clean off my feet a lot easier than I clean my hands.
But I also feel like if you've ever gone through parades and whatnot, aren't you ultra aware of how gross your hands are and how much you want to wash them? But you never really think about that when your feet are disgusting.
How
It is a
often are you
double
in
standard.
parades where your hands get dirty?
I am in more parades than I would like to be in. I find myself in many parades.
Accidental
Planned?
parades.
Or- okay.
Accidental parades. There was a time, what was it, 2-3 years ago, where I found myself in an actual lesbian parade trying to get to Ashley's birthday dinner.
What?
This-
I had zero thoughts about what my feet were in, but I had every thoughts about my hands because I was about to eat for your dinner.
That's true. That's true. I don't know. I mean, let's say either scenario, you may lose a hand or a foot.
Okay.
You're willing to lose a foot over a hand over a foot?
Well, this is a very different question because I think replacing my hand with something amazing would
Like-
be pretty funny, like a hook. Like there's something
Like Buster
very,
Bluth
that's a
from-
very different question of if you replace your foot versus your hand. Because having a hook hand could be quite the conversation starter and would be pretty amazing.
So could a foot. You could get a suction
Unless you
cup
bring
foot.
it up. But
suction
like
cup
literally,
foot.
no. But literally, if you're just at a table and you just like hands on the table, no, you're not gonna put your foot in the table.
That's 'cause
this
you're-
is not Real Housewives of New York.
That's because you're climbing the freaking walls with your suction foot. That's a conversation
she's
starter.
got a
But
suction foot,
how
though.
could you walk with a suction foot?
You'd be like, clop.
That's the actually scientific sound of what that is.
Thank
You
guys
could
for
literally,
practicing that.
you are literally limiting your own travel capabilities by putting the suction on your foot.
mean, you could
then
cap
having
the
something on your
foot.
hand that you could just be like, beer.
Yeah, but if you were with a lover and you have a hook
lover.
hand,
You're
I
saying
mean-
it's replaceable, right?
so what are you gonna do?
Your
Put
lover
little
or the
feathers at
hook?
the end and be like, "Hello, lover, feather
A
hand."
flog.
Wait, are you talking about your hook is replaceable or your lover?
Oh,
Maybe both. But I would like to say that I could replace said hook with like a flogger.
Have
or
you
a
guys,
flail.
Do you watch Arrested Development, or did you?
I did, yes.
When
A
Buster
little bit.
Bluth had a hand.
Oh,
He was like,
cute.
look,
That's
Mom,
true.
look what Army gave me. And he had like that hand that was huge. Remember that? It'd just be comical. You could be like the comical, like, you know, those big foam hands.
It would be comical, but I think at certain times you'd want to be able to put it away, right?
Put away your hook hand?
Yeah.
All right, Ashley, what's your answer for this? Final answer.
I think probably hand in hole. Hand in the hole. You didn't see that shoe. It was disgusting. I mean,
You don't know what's in that
definitely-
hole.
That's true, but if it's like a catfish, I don't mind noodling. It's on my life list anyways.
How big is the
what-
hole? Like, can you actually touch the surroundings of the hole, or if you put your hand in it, it's not necessarily you're actually going to touch anything?
You may or may not touch anything. It's unknown. It could be an abyss of just darkness, or it could be a catfish, or it could be just a bowl of noodles. Who knows?
Why is
Remember,
there a
like-
catfish in the hole?
Remember, like,
Because
those.
catfish
No, do you remember those Halloweens when
Wait,
you're a kid and
underwater?
people, like, peel the grapes and be like, oh, they're eyeballs?
Yes.
Or, like, the
Or, like, the wet
spaghetti.
noodles, yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's
Exactly.
brains.
Yeah,
or
I didn't
whatever.
like sticking my hand into those either. I
I
felt
know.
like
I
I need
always
to
put my foot
immediately
in
wash
there.
them.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, cool.
So yeah, hand and hole for
Final
me.
answer.
Final answer.
Foot and shoe. Final answer for me.
Foot and shoe.
So clearly you guys lost.
Lost
I
our
doubt that.
foot.
How many puddles have you stepped in where you're like, oh shit, I need to like immediately wash my foot?
This was-
but you touch something gross or almost touch something gross. Even just walked weird neighborhoods and we're like, I need to wash my hands before I even eat.
The shoe was disgusting. I stand by it.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that question, Ashley. Second question of the day comes from Stephanie.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
This
Bring
is
it
a
on.
lighthearted question, yes.
Yes. I
So,
hope unless you've changed them.
Born and bred in California over here.
Mhm.
The age-old question of unpredictable earthquake versus predictable storms. What would you choose?
So to preface this, both Ashley and Stephanie grew up in California.
I grew up in Southern California where I went through the 1994 Northridge earthquake and most recently the, 6.9 or 7.1 weird earthquake. Just 3 weekends ago?
Yep.
Maybe, no, 4? I don't know.
You were there for that?
I was there. I was
Yeah.
in there. I
She
was
caused
literally
it.
talking about the 1994 earthquake with my brother and his friends. And I thought I had a little too much to drink sitting on a stool. And all of a sudden just goes, are we having another earthquake?
Are we at Disneyland?
And then the water in the pool is going crazy. And then there was a game going on in Vegas that even got canceled because of how big it was.
Oh.
It was a pretty big earthquake.
It was a massive
big
earthquake.
But it was in LA, so who
So-
cares?
That's a different question.
So Ashley though
Lord.
was born and raised here in Northern
Yeah.
California,
The best bay.
the
Yes.
best part of the California.
Were you here for Loma Prieta?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Then we have
We have two
Something
contenders.
to discuss.
So that was that like 1989?
Yes, it was. Yes,
All right.
it was.
Mine was
still remember
1994, where memories are proven to be more accurate after the age of 4.
That's cute. That's cute.
Thanks, Doctor.
But I will say I remember that earthquake vividly. I was with my grandmother, and all of a sudden, the apartment's shaking, and we were told at the time hide under tables. So of course I'm a little teeny eeny weeny one. I go under the coffee table. My grandmother obviously cannot fit under, and then she's
Obviously.
like, "Obvious." I mean, it was like a foot from the ground.
but we're sitting at a coffee table right now, and
It was much lower.
okay.
And my grandmother, as we all are in our family, are quite hippie. So, so then she's like, maybe not. So we go into a closet, and of course, being an Asian grandmother, she's like, oh my gosh, it's lunchtime. There's an earthquake. I'm just gonna go run back and forth from the kitchen to ensure you're fed.
Oh my god.
Because she was a baller. So yeah, that's my experience.
It was during the day,
Yes,
right?
it
There was
was.
a
Yep.
baseball game happening.
I don't remember that.
There
We didn't-
was the
Yeah.
baseball game down in Candlestick Park. at the
Yeah.
time.
Mine
World
was in the
Series.
middle of the night. I had a friend sleeping over who lived a block away, and had she not slept over, she would have died.
Oh my
because there was
goodness.
an actual bookcase above her bed that had fallen over.
Look at
Oh
you,
my gosh.
lifesaver.
I know. I would like to also state that I slept through it. I woke up at the aftershock when my mom busts into my room screaming that there's an earthquake.
Oh my gosh.
Stephanie's like, what?
Stephanie's like, I only wake up for 9.0s.
But now I sleep through nothing. Scarred me
Aw.
from such a young age.
Well, you guys both grew up in California. I did not grow up here. I grew up in the opposite part of your question. I grew up in Tornado Alley, as they call it, in Nebraska. And then after that, lived in Kansas for about 10 years. So I have a lot of experience with the, as you call, predictable tornadoes or storms. However, they aren't as predictable as you would think.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
How are we defining storms? Because I'm
So-
thinking like rainstorms, not like tornadoes.
No. I was definitely going with the predictability of tornadoes and hurricanes.
Okay.
This
Gotcha,
was
gotcha.
very much targeted in the United States towards the Bible Belt,
Gotcha.
unfortunately.
The Bible Belt.
And the Gulf coasts, because they
okay.
get a lot of hurricanes. And like, do you live in New Orleans knowing that this will happen every September? There is a chance of this massive category 4 or 5 hurricane happening, and that could completely flood your area. Or do you risk it in, sunny-ish California?
let me tell you
at
about
any
my-
point, everybody could die.
Let me tell you about my experiences and what it's like
Yes.
living in the Bible Belt, as you say. So every summer, it becomes just storm season, and there are thunderstorms that can be treacherous in terms of like, I think it seems like almost every year or maybe every 2 years you have to get your roof replaced or something like that because they've had hail so much.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Like every couple of years or so you have a window or two that breaks out of your car or out of your house, and that's normal. Like, it's my dad as a kid would go outside and pick up hail to see how big it was, and I would scream at him because I was so frightened. But I've been through tornadoes. I was at Walmart one time and a tornado came, and that was the weirdest one ever because my mom and I were checking out at Walmart to with our stuff, and we looked at the the big glass front doors, and it was just black outside. And this was like 2 PM. It was like just
Was it black or green? Because I've seen wall clouds.
This was black.
Damn.
It's black at this point. So what happens is like it does. So right before a tornado or a big storm comes, you can feel it in the air.
Yeah.
So like that's about
Really?
as much as like warning as you really
What
get.
does it feel like?
So it feels as if somebody turned off the weather. First
Yeah.
of all, you go outside and
I've been through one.
like wind stops.
Horrifying.
Yeah, the wind stops. The air feels really heavy. Like you're walking through like jello air, basically.
Ew.
And you can kind of smell it on the horizon. You can smell the rain coming, but sometimes you don't really have it yet. And then the sky, like you said, kind of turns like weird colors. So it'll
Yeah.
turn like
Weird.
like it'll be like mid-afternoon and the sky just gets dark and turns like someone put like a filter, like an Instagram filter on your day. And all of a sudden, the storms come rolling in, the wind starts picking up, and then you get like these storm cells that come over you. So it's predictable in the sense of like sometimes you have like a 5-minute warning, sometimes you don't. So like if you're on Walmart inside just says, everybody stay here, run to the shoe department, grab a pillow on your way, put the pillow over your head and sit there.
What?
So that's what we did. I was like, I think like 7 when this one hit, and you could see out the front like things just started flying. Not like cars not
Holy.
flying by, but like debris outside, like a lot of the hay bales because I live in Nebraska, stuff like that. Like we're starting to like unravel and fly by. It was pretty scary. I did not see a tornado that time, but we were safe inside the Walmart. But I have like seen a tornado like a block away before. I don't know. I've been around them a lot. I think though, I mean, there's a reason I live here in California now, but it's not due to storms. But I still think I'd rather be in California where you don't know when an earthquake's going to happen.
I mean, I live here. I still live here. So I'm kind of on the same page, although I've always had this crazy fascination with tornadoes
Okay.
and storm chasers, and I find them completely horrifying and incredible and just like this marvelous work of nature that these cold winds from the north and hot winds from the south just come together and just destroy. It's something really like, I don't know, gorgeous about it. Like tornadoes, I think, are stunning.
I've never seen one before.
Oh my God, I've
so
been
never
through
experienced
almost one. Like I got chased out of one.
Whoa.
So when I was in college, my friends and I decided to go on this massive, ridiculous road trip from where we went to college to Cawker City, Kansas, to see the world's largest ball of twine.
That
Wait,
was your
so
trip in
why
college?
Sure
that location?
did.
That's
Sure. Because
let's-
we
let's
wanted it
unpack
to
that.
be
Wait,
ridiculous.
understand that first. Yeah, why?
We thought it'd be really ridiculous. We were either going to go to Seattle to visit my brother who was stationed outside of Seattle at that time, but he was getting deployed, so that didn't work out. Or we would just choose a really, really strange location, and we happen to choose Cawker City, Kansas, because that's the world's largest ball of twine.
That's so exciting. Out of
So,
all the things.
We
This is
get
America.
there. Yeah, no, we get there in 21 hours. We drive straight through.
Oh my gosh.
And there's this massive green wall cloud behind us in Cawker City, Kansas, as I'm, bowing down to this ball of twine. There are photos.
How
you
big
can
is
You
it?
can add your own twine, right?
It's about the size of a gazebo, which is a little underwhelming, to be honest.
I mean, what were you expecting?
Bigger than that. I was expecting like the size of a multi-level
Like the White House?
building.
Like the White House, but twine.
I mean, it's just twine. Anyways, so the one cap of Cawker City, Kansas comes up to us, sees our license plate that says California, and says, "Don't tell me all California girls are out here to see this ball of twine." I'm already in the midst of tears because I know what a wall cloud looks like. I have been following several storm chasers because tornadoes are fascinating to me.
Okay.
And I ask him, "Is this wall cloud going to become a tornado?" And he says, "Most likely you should leave."
Ooh.
So we then book it to Oklahoma City, where that wall cloud did indeed turn into a tornado. So I didn't actually see it, but I would like to claim that we were chased out for not respecting the ball of twine as much as we should.
You didn't
I
bow
still
down
stick with my original answer of I think I would go with an unpredictable earthquake, being that I live in California. But there's something about tornadoes that are just so stunning.
I do have to say that the thing I miss the most, besides my friends and family in Nebraska, are thunderstorms. The best part, one of the best things ever in the summer is like when you have a front porch,
Yeah.
when the storm comes, the majority of people will go and sit and watch it.
Yes.
And it's just something really cool about that. Even as a kid, my dad would have these long PVC pipes,
Yeah.
and he would take them out to like outdoors, and he would point them towards the storms around us, and we'd listen to the thunder through them.
That's awesome.
It's like, that's really fun.
I love thunderstorms so much. We get them so seldomly here, and whenever we do, I
We've had, like,
treat it as
one.
if it's going to be some big disaster. We all need to get home before
Yeah.
it happens, and it
Oh, and then-
never comes about.
And I
it's
swear our
so
city,
disappointing.
our city is put together by duct tape. So there'll be like one raindrop and all the power goes out for the neighborhood.
I
my
mean,
gosh.
that's a whole different discussion.
But no, I think I really do miss the feel of thunderstorms. There's a certain like, it comes out like a snowstorm too. There's certain kind of comfort you have being in your home,
Yeah.
knowing that chaos is erupting outdoors.
Yeah.
I've just never experienced anything like that. I've only experienced earthquakes or like maybe like, rainstorms here, but nothing ever that extreme. So I'm definitely votes on unpredictable earthquakes just because I've never experienced
And
a
there
tornado.
are certain precautions you could take where, here in San Francisco, we could say
Yeah.
San Francisco, you can choose that you want to live on bedrock versus fill.
True.
I live on
Where-
Phil.
Well,
There we go. I live
So-
on bedrock, but off a freeway ramp.
So if
as
you
my
guys-
brother put it, you don't need to worry about the ground under you, but the cars coming through your windows.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my
So for
gosh.
those of you who don't know and who don't live in San Francisco listening to this, which I'm assuming is most people, San Francisco, part of the city, where it's kind of like a little, think of like, if you look at your palm of your left hand, San Francisco's like the top of your thumb. That's kind of like how I describe San Francisco to my friends, right? We're kind of like a little, I don't know, not like,
it's we actually have an estuary,
okay.
which is scientifically that's where like saltwater and freshwater meet.
Oh, cool. That's great.
That has nothing to do with the land. Keep going.
I love
It
estuaries.
also has nothing to do with the great
Wow,
white
let it-
sharks that come under the Golden Gate Bridge
Or
and
the
into the
estuary.
bay.
In the estuary.
Estuary, that's where we live. So, anyway, we're kind of like a peninsula, and the peninsula of what we are, like a thumb, was not completely complete. So they decided one day to build land on the northeastern part of the city, which is maybe where I live, in some part. I'm not going to give you an exact address.
And where
but
we work.
where we work and where we live currently, and
For now.
so if an earthquake ever came to this part of the city, it would all just kind of
Sink.
fall back into the estuary.
But there are other areas just built on sand, so it's like those areas would be fine.
Those areas would be fine. There are plenty of historical buildings around here who not only went through the Loma Prieta, but
Yep.
went through the 1906
Yep.
crazy big earthquake.
Yep.
And that they've stood just fine. But the fill areas are a little bit iffy.
Yeah.
Where all the new condos are going up. So why don't you
That's
pay a
correct.
lot of money to be on landfill?
I mean,
Hey,
why not?
they've been saying every year for the last 20 years that the next big one's going to hit.
So when I lived in Kansas, Kansas City to be exact, I was on this Red Cross team called Ready When the Time Comes, because I can't remember what fault it is now, but there's a fault like in Arkansas and southern Missouri. And that fault is way overdue, and it's supposed to be one of the biggest earthquakes in American history, recorded history.
Is that the same fault that kind of goes through Tennessee? That they've had a little bit of earthquakes as well.
But it's so they plan when that happens to like not deport, but put people in Kansas City. So I was part of a crew that like was taking training classes on like how to take people in and how to talk to the news and all that kind of stuff when that happens. So I'm ready when the time comes, at least for that one. Anyway. So, my final answer for this one, to your question, Stephanie, of would you rather live in earthquake-prone areas like California or...
Unpredictability of earthquakes versus somewhat predictability of hurricanes and tornadoes.
I am kind of split because I do miss thunderstorms, but I would rather, if I had to choose one final answer, it'd be earthquakes. Because I will just let it happen. When it happens, you have no control.
I mean, when you live in that area, every time it's April, all of a sudden you're just kind of... having the basement ready, right? So I can understand having a couple months of this every year versus it could happen, but then you forget about it until there's something small somewhere else.
Yep.
And just hoping it doesn't happen to you yet.
True.
Yeah,
so
understandable.
your final answers?
It's earthquakes, but I will say it depends on how big the earthquake is, because some earthquakes drive tsunamis. So tsunamis are a completely different situation, because unlike San Andreas, which has the same tsunami happening in the same area of an earthquake, that's not what happens. Fair.
Yes, an earthquake can cause a tsunami, but not in necessarily the same area you are in.
Correct.
So if we had an earthquake here, we could not predict, but say that a tsunami could go westward towards Hawaii. Or, I mean, that's why when there was a crazy earthquake in Japan, there was a tsunami in Hawaii. I was there shortly after that one, and then there were several more later.
I feel like unpredictable things follow you around.
Ergo predictable.
Maybe that's why I've been chasing these tornadoes. Ooh. There is a predictability around it, but they're also just so gorgeous.
That's a really good name for your autobiography. What, Chasing Tornadoes?
Chasing Tornadoes.
Did you ever watch the movie Twister?
Obviously.
Of course. Come on.
It was so good, but so bad because the debris would have shot right through them as they were just like in the eye of the tornado with this belt against this pipe. Like they would have died.
What, you saw them after the tornado passed, though? They had like cuts and things all over them.
Mild cuts. No, we're talking about small bits of debris would have shot through their bodies.
I mean, it's not
Steph,
like...
I don't think you watch it for a scientific fact.
Oh, Stephanie did.
Lower expectation.
I refuse to lower my expectations, but I fucking love that movie.
It's so good.
Also, I'm very much a fan, not of the movie Sharknado, but of the concept.
Sharknado?
Because my friend and I may have thought of this concept before this movie even began.
What about Sharktopus?
So, I mean, Sharktopus, we'll get into that. So, my two biggest fears and why I still choose earthquakes over tornadoes is because tornadoes are one of my biggest fears, along with sharks. They are things that are beyond me. I will never expect, nor should be in their territory. If I get hurt by a shark because I'm in the ocean, deserved. That's their land. That's them.
So you're never going in the ocean then?
I pretty much don't go in the ocean.
Oh,
man. What is this called? Like where we are?
Estuary?
Estuary. Where you go in the estuary?
So my friend, I will name her Lucy.
Lucy? Like my dog?
Lacey.
Oh,
Lacey. She's one of my closest friends from college. I'm obsessed with her. She and I had talked about my fear of tornadoes and sharks, and she brought up, well, what if there was a water spout in the ocean and it sucked up sharks? And I'm like, you shut your goddamn mouth. What? And then all of a sudden, 2-3 years later, Sharknado appears.
Oh, this is where you're going with this.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
My two biggest fears were literally combined into a movie to follow me around.
I think snakes on a plane are some of my two biggest fears mixed together.
Snakes on a plane is so good.
I've never watched it.
I've never watched it. Snakes freak me out.
As they should, but that movie's genius.
But back to Ashley's question, though, about the hand in the hole.
Yep.
I'm so fearful there's going to be a snake inside. There's unlikely
that was the problem with the hole situations. We don't know what's in that hole.
Hey, probability. Let it happen.
let it happen. But there's a good chance you can kind of see if there's a snake or not in the shoe before you put your foot in.
That's true.
Unless
But
you're in.
it's still
Australia.
scary to have like little bugs or lice or flesh-eating bacteria on
Can
the
you get lice
amoebas.
from someone's shoe?
Absolutely, you could. Lice can definitely live on a shoe. Yeah, and you have hair follicles.
Well, for sure, but I feel like the amount of travel from your foot to anywhere where the lice would grow and thrive is less than if it was on your hand.
Unless you like let your armpit hair grow out and just let it travel through your pants.
How long is
That's
your
a
armpit
lot.
hair that it would
Can
travel
people-
through your pants?
Could
Why are you
people have-
keeping it that long?
I don't know, but would people? Can you get armpit hair long enough that you can like tuck it into your
I
pants
think
and go
it
all the way
stops
down?
at some point. It's kind of like if you never shaved your legs again, it would never get long enough that you could tuck it in.
Because guys
What?
never really
Does it?
shave their legs, right?
Exactly.
And they don't have like
Unless
hair
you're a
tucked in
swimmer.
their shoes.
True.
Could you imagine if guys' leg hair grew long enough to be tucked into their socks and shoes because it was so long?
You could cornrow it,
Oh, that's hot.
That's cultural appropriation.
If there are any guys,
and we're there.
And we're there.
if there are any guys out there with leg hair that long, please send me your pictures too.
Or don't.
Ashley at
Or don't. Just get rid of that shit.
Just get rid of it. Okay,
All right.
so final answer for me, of course, is California.
California. I think the answer isn't California. I think the answer is earthquakes over tornadoes. I'm going to go unpredictable earthquake.
My answer is still California.
Whatever happens.
Yeah, whatever
At least
happens,
we're
happens.
California.
Exactly. Earthquakes.
Okay, Ashley says earthquake.
Consensus.
Consensus. Look at us all agreeing on something.
We all win.
Not
We
everybody
all
can
win.
be a
Trivia
hand in a
game.
hole.
Okay.
Hand in the hole.
So you guys had. I'm going to my question now. And you guys had really not easy questions. Questions that
Oh.
had one of two answers.
I was
right?
directed to have an easy
You
question.
had easy questions. Stephanie first came up with questions just that are episode 2 and 3 options.
We'll get deeper as we
So
go.
my question is more personal, and it's not a would you rather, but I want to understand what is your history with cussing, saying curse words, and I'm asking this because I have a very polar opposite kind of sides of my life where I feel like cursing is more acceptable now, but I want to hear you guys' history. Where you first started cursing, what your first memory of cursing was, kind of how you do it now versus who you do it in front of, all that kind of stuff. So
Ooh.
tell me about your history.
I have two.
You
With
go.
I'm ready.
Go.
So I believe I was around 6 or 7,
starting young.
starting young. I remember hearing the word fuck. I
Oh, no.
wrote it because I thought
You
it was
wrote it?
because I thought it was like, oh, I could spell something. Let me spell it and display
Wait, so
it.
this was your first word you wrote?
Was fuck.
I respect that. I respect
And
that.
I showed
Wait,
it.
Hold on, I can imagine Stephanie in grade school, instead of her writing her name on paper. she
No, I
just-
was at home. I
Okay.
remember I was in my family room hearing
Okay.
this and being like, I can spell what I heard.
Okay,
Why
good
am
for
I
you.
envisioning you as like Stewie and writing this
I was
down
not
like,
Stewie.
haha, mama and papa?
No, but I did display it to my dad and to my brother Matt.
Cool whip, Stewie.
Cool whip. So I wrote the word fuck and I was just excited that I could write it. Like I was at that age where like I could write things I hear. And I presented it to them and they just took it and crumpled it.
Ooh.
And I was like, what just happened?
You were so proud
I
of
was
your
so
work.
excited. Like, what did I do
Wait,
wrong?
what did you write it on?
Just a piece of paper. I believe it was blue paper. And in my mind, I know memories are all fiction. Thank you, Elizabeth Loftus. Sorry, we'll go into psychology later. Is all memories are fiction?
Yes, that's
situation.
true. It's true.
In my memory, it was a blue piece of paper, and I wrote it in a purple crayon.
You know what my
Wow.
hope was? That you wrote it with flesh tone color Crayola.
I did not.
What? Where did that come from?
Because she was 5 or 6, and those are the shittiest colors in Crayola.
I'm like, in my mind, it was blue construction paper, and it was purple crayon.
I have to tell you guys, did you ever know that I named a crayon
No. What's the
That's
name
where-
and what was it?
Denim? There was a name the color contest in like 1996 for Crayola,
Oh my.
and I entered the name Denim. However, I did not win the trip to Universal Studios because, anyway, I can go off on this a long time, but I was so upset I didn't win the free trip. But I named the crayon Denim, which is still in circulation today.
Whoa, you're a celebrity.
You're welcome. You're welcome,
Celebrity.
children of since 1996.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my first memory, and not really understanding what I did wrong, which can be a whole different psychology lesson later.
Okay.
But I had written the word fuck and not understanding what was wrong with it because nobody tried to explain to me. They just kind of took the paper, crumpled it up, said, "Don't say this again." And that was it. But then my second main memory was, this is very memorable because I was it was sophomore, junior of high school. It was a bad year. There was a good friend of our group that had passed away from cancer.
Oh.
My history teacher also passed away. And we had a substitute. It was a mess. And so when the substitute said, "I'm so sorry, your teacher passed away," but he wanted to say that, this was an incredible group of students and just, the whole spiel that made us all cry. And my dad picked me up, and the guy I was dating at the time was in the backseat of the car. And my dad was asking me a bunch of questions, and I just couldn't formulate a thought other than, like, "I've had a shitty day, like, leave me alone." And then immediately apologize, like, "I'm sorry for the language. Like, I know this isn't something I would normally say, but a lot of deaths just happen in a very succinct amount of time." Mm-hmm. And then from then, I don't know, I stopped caring. So now I have a very open relationship with my parents. There's cussing constantly. Not necessarily from them, but from me and my brothers, because it's lost, I don't know, it's meaning, it's sentiment.
It's a bang behind it.
Yeah, now it's just... And there's a lot more that I'm sure can go into it as opposed to, like, what bad words and what they mean. But it's gone into such a topic of just normal conversation where, yes, I'll say shit, I'll say damn it, I'll say fuck. It doesn't matter
just
anymore.
Just keep listening to them all while you're at it.
List
We're in
them all.
plus right now.
Yeah, she's like, then there's shit fucking
This
dumb
is
fuck.
TVMA. Yeah, no, to the point where it doesn't matter. And I don't use it all the time. It is still used as a form of emphasis.
Yeah.
But that's my, like, second biggest memory of my dad immediately looking me at this in the car when I said that word and immediately having to apologize for it, and then never again having to apologize for what I've said, because what I've said isn't as important as, like, the words behind what I said, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you have a catalyst, though. I mean, it's a good catalyst to become a cusser.
Oh, yeah, but I know when to turn it off. Like, I know if I'm meeting people's parents for the first time, I'm not going to just go with all the words I happen to know in my vocabulary.
Let's imagine that situation.
Just spewing them off. But, yeah, in regular conversation, I now say them because it's, I don't know if it's lost meaning because of how young I started saying them or because of how commonly it's used in every now and date phrases. I'm not sure.
Has it completely lost meaning, or do different swear words have a gradient of, like, the severity of how you use them? So, for example, damn is different than fuck.
It is, but I feel like in certain situations, saying fuck in certain, like, fuck, as opposed to, like, an actual, like, fuck you. Like, there's still a gradient even in just the word itself.
Have you guys heard or read, like, the psychologists or scientists that say that people who curse are more trustworthy or better friends? Do you guys know this state?
No, but I agree with it.
I've heard it, yeah.
It makes sense.
I don't remember the exact study behind it, but yeah, I do remember, like, people who curse have, like, usually a higher IQ in various situations, and I think it's, I don't know, I don't remember reading it, but I think it has something to do with the lack of holding back.
And there's no causation, so, like, so I'm just thinking, like, if I had a kid, I'd be like, listen, start cursing young, because I want you to be a genius. This is the next Albert fucking
I think there are other variables where you
There are
could
definitely
make
other
your
variables.
child
I don't necessarily
intelligent.
want my first.
I mean,
Like, what if you named your kid with their middle name of a curse word?
So no, I'm not going there. I'm gonna just hold myself back from that
Another
one.
story, another time.
or another glass of wine.
Another glass of wine, another bottle of wine.
Yeah, I've already finished this one on my own.
Okay.
That's a good pitch.
Thank you.
Ashley, what's your history with cussing?
Oh man, I'm trying to think back. I think the first time I ever swore was when I was little, and I didn't know what it meant, but I think I said something like shit, and I was like 3 or 4, and I thought it was funny because my brothers would laugh, and then I thought it was hilarious. I had no idea what it meant, and I still remember I was like with my mom, and we were walking up the hill to our apartment, and she was just like, that is inappropriate, and I was just like, not like that, but not far from it. And then, no, frankly, I came from a pretty conservative family, so swearing is not really something that my parents love. So I'd say probably when I started working at a tech company in Seattle.
Yes.
It was my first day, and I remember my colleague that I had met for lunch. I had just come from some really conservative companies, and this guy on my team was like, "What the fuck?" And it was the first time I had met him. We were having lunch, and I was like, "Dude, what is happening?"
Wait, what was this in response to? Like, just meeting you for the first time?
He
He
was just a large character.
Yeah,
All right.
and
Who I
basically,
super love to this day, by the way.
Yeah,
We
he-
do still catch up.
yeah, he would say "fuck" basically in every other word. Yes. He's from Chicago.
Chicago.
That was appropriate. And and so after that, after sitting next to him, I realized the love of cussing. I love saying fuck. And I also realized that when I've worked with other people who don't swear, then I feel like I'm offending them. And
Doesn't that give you some sort of like power over them?
no, I want to make them feel comfortable.
Oh.
Oops, you've been doing this wrong for a while.
Oh no.
There was this one guy who I once managed, and I remember I was swearing a little bit, and I asked him, I said, you've been really quiet, or I just want to make sure you're comfortable. Am I like making you uncomfortable? And he said, Ashley, it's my second week. I can wait to say fuck in another week. And I was like, yes. It gives me some relief, though, when people do use profanity.
It feels like they're kind of opening a door to you.
It
to, like,
does.
Yeah,
trust
there's a
you.
level of comfort
Yeah.
that you didn't assume you would get. So
yeah,
early
we can be crazy together.
Exactly. Well, and it's also the directness and full honesty of how they're talking versus having a filter way. Not to say that everyone has to use profanity, but there is something very real when someone like uses it in conversation with me.
So if someone uses it though, do you feel like you need to respond in kind? If they're like, "Oh, this day is horrible. I can't."
Why can't you say fucking horrible?
Just you'll understand when we get to my story. Go ahead.
So no, it's just be honest to how you want to respond.
Yeah.
Maybe it can mirror, maybe it won't. It's not really a forcing fit.
Yeah, when somebody else cusses, it makes me think I can be in my comfort level. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to respond with said words. It just
Correct.
means that I am okay to respond in which way I want to respond.
See, I have the opposite. If someone is in a conversation with me and they're like, they drop fuck.
Oh, that
Such a
was
hard time
painful.
saying
That was
it.
so
Oh my
painful.
God.
I feel like I need to say it within 2 or 3 sentences to be like, I'm here with you, camaraderie.
Oh my goodness.
Hello, fuck comrade. Like, what? Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it's funny though. It's like changed over time. Even my parents now, I will hold back a little bit with them, but on occasion I do.
I've stopped.
Well, my parents are still pretty old school though. However, my mom's gotten really into Bitmoji, and she'll like change up her bit. I will close the loop. She changes her
I won't
Bitmoji.
close that loop. I got things.
She will like change her Bitmoji, and I remember she texted me, and the emoji said mofo, and she's like, "What does this mean?" And I remember I saw my mom in person. I took that eye contact, and I was like, "Mom, it means motherfucker." And she was like, "Oh my goodness." And she's like, "Is that even grammatically correct? Shouldn't it be mofu?" And I was like, "That's your problem, Mom. That's your problem."
The issue.
Yeah.
I've thought that same thing so many times.
It's wonderful.
It should be mofu.
Oh my God.
Maybe.
My mom was a teacher, and whenever we use the word suck, she'd be like, "Don't say suck. That's for a vacuum."
Oh.
Like the stupid shit that you would say when you're a middle school teacher to get your
stupid
kids
shit.
to not to curse.
Yeah.
And it just only enticed me more. But now we're at an age where we're just back and forth. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's just language, and we know when to hold
Yep.
it back in certain situations. You don't say certain things.
True.
But in other situations, it doesn't matter.
True.
You're not using super offensive language to most parties, and those are the languages that you should keep to yourself.
Well, I feel like when you're younger too, you're saying it to make a point, to be like,
True.
boom, mother effers.
Yeah.
Exactly like
Oh my
that.
God, just like that.
But now,
Exactly like that. When I'm
Exactly.
like, I'm really upset. Boom, mother effers. That gets to me. I'm mirroring your language now.
I have a feeling this is something that's going to come in most of our podcasts, but I need to take a break.
Boom, boom, you mofu. Mofu. So, in Stephanie's absence, I will tell you guys a little bit about my history with cursing. The first time I apparently cussed was when my first house that we lived in. I think like a toddler playing on the floor, and we had our pastor over for dinner, and our pastor said something like, "Oh, children are so pure." Within 30 seconds of my pastor saying that, I looked up and I go, "Shit." And so I don't recall this, but my mom would always tell this story about me being bad, and I was a very, very, very well-behaved child. So for me to do something like that is just so out of character. So my parents bring the story up very often because it's really funny for them. But I grew up in a very religious household where I couldn't even say I got this. I couldn't say the word "Gott" because my dad would say that's like German for God. Like, don't say "Gott." Like,
That's a verb.
Yeah, but to this day, he's like, don't even say "Gott." So I couldn't say "sucks." I couldn't say anything. Like, I couldn't say "darn it."
What if you want to eat a suckling pig?
I'd have to have a stinkling pig.
Stinkling pig.
So my history with cussing is just that I've been so afraid of it because I've always been such a goody two-shoes. I do remember one time, though, I was on a soccer team when I was in, like, second grade, and I was on the boys' team because they didn't have any girls' teams at the time. And I got pushed over in practice, and I laid on the ground for a second, and the only thing I could think of in my head was, what curse word can I say right now and fit in? So I go mumbling, "Oh my God."
That's your curse word?
That was my curse word. And I was so ashamed of that for like 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, I was so afraid of
Is
cursing.
the word worth that amount of shame?
Well,
To
if
me,
you
it
grow
was.
up like that,
Well, I just while you're in the restroom, I wasn't allowed to
I drink
say,
a lot of wine.
I wasn't allowed to say like I got this, because it was
Too close?
It was too close to saying God.
Oh, wow.
So I was just such a culture to say like nothing, or just hold it in instead of saying curse words. But let me tell you where it started, where my culture of cursing to start. When I was in college, I went to a very religious college. However, my roommate one year loved that they could never get me to curse, and they loved it. That was so funny. So we made a national holiday. We call it National Holiday, National Cussing Day, where it was
Yes.
allowed and encouraged for all of us to cuss together. So they would call my voicemail back when cell phones were like the brick Nokia phones. They would
Yes.
call me and leave voicemails that were like, "Happy motherfucking National Cussing Day, you asshole!" Like, and I would just be so embarrassed. I'd have to wait till the end of the day to get it together enough to be like to respond. So I'd call and leave messages. But this roommate thought it was so funny that I never cussed, that she one day bought animal crackers and wrote cuss words on all of them and put them all over my desk. So I walked into my dorm room. At my desk was just like a zoo full of animal cussing
Quite literally.
crackers. I mean, so that was kind of the beginning of it. I still am cautious to cuss, but my last job before the current one, I worked in a video game company. In the video game world, cussing is just like breathing. So
Yes.
that was my first workplace where cussing was just part of the job.
Mine
So
too.
yeah, now I still hold back, but because I'm still fearful that I will get in trouble. But it comes out sometimes. But it's just not my comfort level to do it frequently.
For you, do different words incite like different feelings? So you're okay to say like, is saying damn for you like more okay now? And are there words that you would never say?
So I can say damn. Like damn, I feel like is a word that in general, and it's becoming more okay to say. Because you see it on TV more. I think like ass is okay to say because it's just becoming more. I don't know if it's because we're getting older or just because I moved away from the Bible Belt or what it is, but it's becoming more commonplace to say that. Fucking shit are very.
You can't see her face, but she said it with huge hesitation.
Yeah, they're
Such hesitation.
They're very. It's hard for me to say those unless I'm like really enraged, or like if someone says it in my conversation, I have to repeat it back to them. You know what I just told you before. I'm a very, very much like a peacemaker is my personality. So I want to kind of keep people at an even level, and for me, if someone brings it up, I've got to repeat it back to them. Now you know my secret, so you guys are going to be making me cuss all
That's
day long.
no, that's not a huge secret. I mean, even though technically in the Enneagram, whatever that's called, I'm also the peacemaker.
Yeah.
But in real life, I would say I'm the like chameleon. Where I can mold into the situations that I'm in. So if I'm with a bunch of people who will not say those words, I will not say those words. But if I'm in situations where everybody's saying them, then I'm just saying them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm the challenger.
I know
so I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck either.
Oh, girl!
Get it.
I'm just trying to repeat back to you. But sometimes I will cuss on Twitter, and I feel so proud of myself.
Twitter validation is real.
Validation.
But I'm still fearful that the beginning part of my life, all the relationships I have from that part of my life when everything was more conservative, I'm still fearful that I will hurt their feelings or make them think less of me or my family because I'm saying certain words.
I mean, there's definitely filtering, right? If I'm going to see my parents and their friends or something like that, I'm not going to be throwing it down.
Mofu.
I'm not going to be saying mofu. Though I will say my parents and their friends have really loosened up a lot. So maybe that's different. We're all coming more to the middle or something like that.
So do you think society as a whole is becoming more okay with these curse words, or is it because we're just getting older and it's becoming more part of our society?
I think it's honestly, at least for me, it has everything to do with being in this like tech bubble where everybody just cusses. And so it seems okay to do it. Where I feel like I actually have to realign myself in different situations, which is why I've come to this kind of chameleon phase of if I'm in certain situations where nobody is saying certain words, I won't go ahead and say those words. Not that they necessarily like come to my mind immediately, but I do try to make everybody a little bit more comfortable around me. I guess that's the peacemaker part of me.
I don't think it has to do with the tech bubble, though. I mean, look at New York. Like, everyone there says fuck and shit. And
That's not true.
And there's my
yeah.
bagel.
Where's my bagel?
I was literally gonna go off of that. That's where the largest synagogue of the world is, and they don't cuss.
I guess when I go there, I feel like everyone says it, and I feel at home.
Because when you go there, it's tech and media hub.
No, not in Queens.
So if any of our listeners are from New York, please enlighten us more.
Please enlighten us. That's where I've been told I need to move so I can finally get married.
You know what? You know what I like about men in New York? They're very upfront. They're just like, I like you, I want to take you on a date. In California, it's very different.
In California, it's like, hey, I've got 4 other dates this week. Would you like to be my 5th?
Yeah, and by the way, I'm going to have this backup.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard at least.
That's
Also,
dating in
nobody
San
paid
Francisco.
attention to me in high school or college, but now I'm a really successful engineer.
Just like that
So-
Kardashian voice.
Just like that.
And I haven't changed my underwear in 3 days.
In 3 days.
That's
y'all.
so disgusting.
That was
I
a
can't.
conversation we had before we started recording. But there was like a news report that came out today or yesterday that said
Yesterday.
46% of people admit that they've worn underwear at least 2 days in a row before changing
We'll
it.
fact check that.
And so
Yeah.
that was a discussion we had before. Anyway, this is kind of the conclusion of our questions for today, for this podcast. Thank you if you've made it to the end. We owe you a drink on us if you're ever around us. and
Thanks for
find us.
listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Several drinks on me.
Or several drinks in you.
In
True.
me.
Well phrased.
But this has been fun for us. If you guys have any questions or topics, come check out our website out at WTFAQpodcast.com. Again, that's WTFAQpodcast.com. If you are so inclined, please give us a 5-star review. We hope to be better and better at this as time goes on. And again, if you have any topics for us to do, reach out to us. You know where to find us. Bye, everyone.
Bye.